just because, you might have died in this lifetime, but you might not even, be connected to a certain bloodline. You might just, come back and be a stranger to that person, but that person might still be your cosmic child or whatever. Because like I said, this three-dimensional illusion that we live in is all an illusion.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think this is similar to another question we had. Destiny wants to know, if you feel you are a light worker or healer and you don't know where to start, what would you recommend, BDELL?
I start with doing shadow work, because I tell people all the time, you shouldn't tap into, try to tap into metaphysics. You got to go through a process of self-realization. You got to deal with, certain things that's haunting your bloodline, certain things that's, certain skeletons in the closet that you try to clean out or whatever. You got to deal with that before you tap into that energy, because when you get subjected to information, you know what I'm saying, it can sometimes be detrimental to you. So deal, when you're on the path of a light worker, go through that path of self-realization and do your shadow work, and then tap into the energy to where you're able to seek knowledge.
Mm-hmm. I got a question for you, BDELL. So, because of that question she asked, this is something I had on my mind years ago, and I get these questions and I forget them, and then they may pop back up years later. When we because we're trying to figure out, what are we passionate about? Like, how do we know? What we do know in this realm is that, say I like a sister, right, BDELL, and I'm attracted to her. I know I know, like, I may get a certain sensation. My dick may get hard. Things will happen with my body, like I'll get turned on and I'll be like, damn, like, and I'm saying this if I was single. This is, I'm in a relationship now, so I gotta say that.
Right.
But if you're single out there and you see something, you like a girl with a big ass, because your organs is telling you, your sexual organs is telling you, yeah, I like that, I like her. What I want to ask you is that the same way we get that signal from our sexual organs, when it comes to our passion, is goosebumps a sign from our soul that, oh yeah, that's what you're supposed to do? So say somebody reads a book and they're reading a book about cooking and they get goosebumps from reading a book. Is that a sign from your soul, like, nigga, this is you right here? Just like your dick is telling you, I like her. Is the goosebumps the same, like, nigga, this is you? Is that what goosebumps is, BDELL, when we get them?
Yeah, it's kind of like the epikinetic body trying to merge in with the Zohar body.
You gotta explain that one.
So, like, your epikinetic body is just basically when you read certain things, when you come across certain things, it activates genetical memory that's connected to your codons and your bloodline. So your Zohar body in itself is basically your higher self, which is the oversoul, which is your body in an etheric state. So that basically, when that happens, that energy in itself has an orgone energy. It can basically manipulate certain things. You know what I'm saying? It has a certain energy and a vibration, when it comes to that. So it might activate something within you when you come across a certain book, when you come across a certain monolithic structure, or you come across certain information and you get goosebumps. That's your oversoul connecting with your epikinetic body, telling you, hey man, you need to tap into this. You need to get at this right now.
Very interesting. Wow. All right, let me get back to your questions. We're gonna get to a couple of more, then we're gonna get out of here. Let's see. Somebody wants to know, can certain souls only reincarnate to certain DNA of a person? Does DNA matter in the spiritual world?
Yes, it does. I think it was, they used to do back in the ancient times. They used to do I forgot what it was called. They used to but I know that they used to do with reincarnation. Yeah, you can reincarnate back into a certain DNA structure of a person. That, because DNA definitely matters in spirituality. So, like I said, like when it comes to like DNA and us being spiritually connected to this planet or whatever, that's a real thing, because our codons are actually acclimated to this geographical landmass. So spirituality and genetics and DNA actually, you know, they work in symbiotic connection. But you know, you definitely can reincarnate because, like I said, that person in that family may not have, you know, reaped the benefits of doing their purpose or their mission. So it's kind of like a substitute. You know what I'm saying? Another person comes in the game and they basically fulfill that contract, basically.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Let's get to the next one. Miss Neek wants to know, what advice would you give a chosen one who is an empath that procreated with a man with narcissistic tendencies and the child was born out of a trauma bond?
See, that's the thing though. The great majority of, you know, chosen ones were born out of a trauma bond. We were born in, you know, families that that face many different afflictions and shackled the bloodline in itself. So the best way to do it is, you know, revitalize everything. You got to, you know, go through a process. Like I said, everything starts with self-realization. You got to go do that shadow work. You got to go through that shadow work and basically dismantle everything that's basically embarking, you know, that child.
Indeed. You know, it almost seems like sometimes, BDELL, people who are born into trauma want wealth and riches, and people who are born with wealth and riches, sometimes it seems like they want to experience trauma.
Mm.
So it's kind of weird.
Mm-hmm.
Like you know, the
Because they get
people.
bored. It's kind of
Yeah,
like best way I can explain it. It's kind of like that one is like the kid that grew up with everything. He grew up with a nice family. His family, his parents were together, and then he want to be a street dude. It's the same
right.
thing.
Same thing. Yeah. So like we must know this on a higher plane, and we like, nah, I need something a little more challenging. I guess we want to be challenged from another realm, huh? That's why we choose certain situations that we're born in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Something because like I said, it's kind of like it's basically, you know, you already know you can hit, you know, 145 plays. You just add more resistance. You know what I'm saying? It's just to, you know, to reap the benefits of, you know, trying to put yourself through many different levels in order to get yourself to a next level.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. Let's get to another question. Uh with this being said, the last cycle, what happens in the event that we don't fully complete our mission?
Mm. I can't really say. I can't really say because everything is already pre-encoded. Everything's already written in the stars. So
Right.
everything that's supposed to happen is going to happen.
Right. Indeed. So if you had a mission to complete, you will complete it.
Basically, but even if you don't think you completed it, you know, some people, like I said, some people don't even think they're good enough, or they don't even think that they don't have a purpose because they don't have a voice or a platform. But like I said, you might do it on a micro level, which is a good thing. You know what I'm saying? Because you're not being compromised by, you know, outside forces or whatever. So just because you don't have, you know, notoriety or recognition for what you do, you know what I'm saying? You might be feeding the homeless and stuff like that, you know, every day, but you don't get recognition for it. That doesn't mean that you didn't fulfill your and complete your mission before the cycle runs out.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, so many questions in the chat. Let me ask this one. So how long does it take for a soul to reincarnate from prior death to new life, BDELL?
I'm not sure how long that takes. But I know that, like I said, a soul is it dwells on this planet for it takes 19 days for a soul to enter the body of a baby.
Mm-hmm.
That I think I kind of answered the same question earlier when they was answering questions.
Mm-hmm. All right. Let's see. Somebody he really wants to know the answer to this question. How do you start shadow work? Please elaborate with 20 question marks. All
Okay,
right.
best way, like I said, like if you're dealing with a food addiction, you're dealing with porn addiction, you're dealing with an addiction that basically that takes you away from your true nature. You got to develop a certain energy and a certain form of discipline to where you can master yourself to where you don't have to subjugate yourself to those lower forms. So once you deal with your shadow work, as far as like you cleaning up yourself mentally, spiritually, vibrationally, cleaning up your family, cleaning up some of the things that subjugated them, that's how you tap into your shadow work. You got to heal. Everything starts with healing. You can't just jump into information without healing. You know what I'm saying? Then you become a toxic teacher and you just do all types of stuff, you know? So it's one of those things where you got to heal. Everything starts with healing first.
Next question. Can you give some insight on ascensions? I think they mean to say symptoms. They said systems, but I think they mean symptoms.
Yeah. The ascension symptoms is connected to the heartbeat of the planet Earth which is the Schumann resonance. So that Schumann resonance is not a coincidence that it's the same color spectrum as the green etheric energy that's connected to the Sufi order of the Sons of Green Light, because the soul is actually green. So that energy is not a coincidence that color spectrum is like in alignment. So every time you have a Schumann resonance spike, that creates an influx of, you know, headaches, body aches, and things of that nature. That is the body trying to get acclimated to a new atmosphere. Because we're going from a three-dimensional atmosphere into an omnicron-based atmosphere. Because we live inside of a dome. When you talking about Genesis or whatever, when God created the firmament, who was Yahweh, who was Enlil, who created the firmament that encapsulated us inside of the dome, you got certain cracks in the firmament where you had that spiritual sun outside of the dome, which is the star Polaris, which is the spiritual sun that's giving these activations of etheric energy to where we having these body aches and things of that nature. So that's where it's coming from.
Okay. Oh yeah, I want to ask you because you said we're going from I think you said from 3-dimension to Omnicron. What's Omnicron?
Omnicron is basically the same. It's the same atmosphere that the great majority of these motherships and these shams or these UFOs have. Omnicron state is when it's able to go in the 4th octave ether. So some of these UFOs and stuff like that, they don't have they can show themselves, but they don't have to take corporeal form at the same time because it's able to dematerialize in the form of ether. So which is why you have certain clouds and things of that nature who look like UFOs, but from your perception, it's a cloud, but it could be a UFO at the same time. So at the same time, that's because they galvanize the energy from outside of the magnetosphere, which is based on the Omnicron-based state. That makes sense.
No, definitely. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely makes a lot of sense. All right, we're gonna do 2 more questions and we out of here, family. Let's see. Somebody said, would you recommend professional therapy as an approach to shadow work?
I'm not opposed to therapy, but it depends on who's doing the therapy. So I don't really care too much for the westernized concept of what therapy is. If I'm going to go that route, I want somebody who look like me to tell me about me and what I need to revitalize in order to tap into a form of healing. I don't want to hear from somebody else who, you know what I'm saying, grew up in a white picket fence and they've never been through nothing. I don't want to hear nothing what they got going on. So as far as like healing and shadow work, now, like I said, you can get, you know, a few gems and you can get, you know, knowledge from those people at the same time, but it's not going to resonate and it's not going to connect as much as it would as if you getting the therapy from somebody who looks like you and been through those same afflictions just like you.
All right. And last question, BDELL. Can you talk about light workers and how we should handle depression?
The best way to handle depression, I told you, your emotions is going to deceive you every time. A person would tell you that the sky is red if the color blue hurts their feelings. So when you get out of a state of emotionalism, you got to use your emotions as a navigation system to deviate on how to get around certain things to where you're looking at things from a critical level, when you're looking at things from a rational level and a logical level. So, like I said, don't negate your emotions, but you just have to use it as a resource. You got to use it as an alchemical resource, because some people, they so emotional that they demons is able to attach themselves to their energy. You know what I'm saying? You got people who emotionally eat, you know what I'm saying, which is why they overweight. Mm-hmm. You got people who are emotionally on a sexual level to where, they get out of a relationship and they just want to start messing with everybody. So that's the over emotionalism that's basically subjugated us, because they don't want us to understand the fact that, being rational is a lot more proactive than being very emotional. So that's the thing, though. You got to be disciplined, and you can't let your emotions supersede your nature.
Indeed. Very important. Yeah, very important. Especially moving forward as men, we definitely have to learn how to control our emotions out here.
Facts.
And not get caught up in all this deception out here, fellas. So yeah, definitely. BDELL, man, it's always a pleasure having you on here, brother.
I appreciate it, man.
Any last thoughts you want to leave the people? Any information you want to give them? Go ahead, my brother.
I got another video dropping pretty soon, and it's basically talking about the end of the corporation and the corporation in itself, because you had not too long ago, you had the White House was up for sale for $400 million, and then you got the Balfour Declaration exceeded its expiration date on October 31st. So a lot of stuff that's taking place that lets you know that, this demonstrative government, this de facto corporation, has basically exceeded its limits. So I told you about the 1868 Apocryphal Bible, on how 2024 is actually the year 6,000. The 6,000 year verification of the Piscean energy ends in 2024. So that's what that next video is basically about. So it's basically about us getting our, geographical landmass back. So that's why you got to stay away from people who saying that we came from Africa, and when really we're indigenous to this geographical landmass, because you go to the 1848 Supreme Court decision, it tells you that the 5 civilized tribes is connected to the Black and brown people who are connected to this land, who are the seeds of Enki. And then you have another thing that's taking place. Don't get caught up into the Snyder Act, because it's another way to take you away from the land. Don't get caught up into the Project All Aboard, because they talking about giving indigenous people money to move out their country, a lot of money, like millions of dollars, to move out to other countries. So there's another form of technology that they use with ecclesiastical law to deviate from your sovereign capacity to be connected to this land. So all I'm saying is just be very meticulous and be aware of the technology that's being implemented by the corporation.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely make sure y'all check out this brother's channel. His channel's popping. Crystal is 10 pounds. Shout out to everybody who out there who support the platform. I actually showed y'all some awards earlier. Give a shout out. Before the internet blew up, there was awards going on. This was the Black Power Award. Shout out to the brother. Forget the brother's name. If somebody in the chat know the brother who put this together, let me know his name. But shout out to the brother who did the Black Power Awards, and shout out to Sonetta for the awards. He put the award ceremony he put together. I actually got two. One, me and Kambada got one for music, and I got one for my YouTube channel. But yeah, I'm very thankful to be awarded for fulfilling my destiny. I see some of you were upset, saying that's Matrix stuff. I live a whole different life from y'all. I live by a whole different set of rules, and I move to my own beat. So I'm not even bothered by the foolishness some of y'all say. But I do want to appreciate, and even shout out to YouTube. They be on their bullshit sometime, but I got an award from YouTube as well. Yeah, it feels good to be following your destiny and being rewarded for it at the same time. So just want to thank all of y'all. Some of y'all been following me since Blog Talk Radio, and we putting in a lot of work. And that's why there's young brothers like this brother I have on today, BDELL. This brother's phenomenal with the information. He's a result of all the elders that put in the work. You know, we got to pay it forward. The Dr. Valentines, the Dr. Yorks, the Delbert Blairs, and everybody else who's out there teaching metaphysical occult information. We're carrying on that tradition, pushing it forward. So thank you. And with that being said, BDELL, man, what's going on, man? What you been up to, brother?
Nothing, man. Just trying to, dish out the edification as much as I can to where people are on the same wavelength of information. So,
Indeed,
just trying to follow my purpose.
Right. Hey, your channel, BDELL has a lot of interesting videos on his channel. I definitely want y'all to check out his YouTube channel. What's your YouTube channel again, brother?
My YouTube channel is BDELL1014. It's the same nomenclature title at the bottom that you see on the screen.
Yeah.
BDELL1014 on all platforms.
Indeed. And actually, what we're talking about tonight, BDELL's going to do a part 2 on his channel. So definitely stay tuned for that. Important topic. There's a lot going on with behind the scenes right now, as we can see, with alien disclosures and them saying they found non-biological humans, and the whole situation with the sun and the heat wave, and people saying there's a different sun. A lot of things going on. One thing that I want to talk to BDELL about tonight that struck an interest to me early in the year when I asked Dr. Valentine and somebody else is the letter X. The letter X is always, you know how you could feel things. As an empath, I could feel energy. I feel energy from the letter X. When X is mentioned, when I see it, you can feel it has a certain vibration to it. And I want to ask, and we see things like the Nation of Islam with the X. We see it in mathematics. We see it in the sky with chemtrails. We see it in a lot of different situations where X is used. And we see Elon Musk wanting to rename his company from Twitter to X. We also know, BDELL, that the great solar eclipse is going to form an X over the entire country in 2024. And that's supposed to be a big event that's happening next year. So let's start this conversation out. BDELL, what's the deal? Well, even SpaceX, yeah, somebody says space, yes, even SpaceX. What's the deal with this letter X and the vibration and everything that comes behind it, my brother?
Well, there's a delineation in a dualistic principle behind the letter X. So it represents transformation, it represents change. So that change is not only subjected to something that's diabolical that's going to be happening on the planet. There's a restoration and a revitalization process to the people who are actually acclimated to the indigenous landmasses of America. So the X that's over the landmass of America, that solar eclipse, that's the return of the ancestral energy. So X is also connected to the symbology of a matriarchal energy, which is connected to the X chromosome of the woman. So it's the return of the divine feminine energy. Because we know that the Aquarian age is under a golden age, and the golden age is galvanized by a matriarch, and the matriarch is connected to nature. So that's your unification process of the heavens amalgamating with the physical world. So that's the X is also the symbology of the physical world populating with the spiritual world at the same time. So that's where you get your ideology of a new heaven and a new earth.
Right. So whoever uses this symbol gains power from this symbol, like Elon Musk, or let's say DMX. Like, does it matter whether you're on the so-called good side or the so-called bad side? Can you garner energy from this X if you simply use it?
Well, I think the reason why people like Elon Musk uses this symbol, it's another way for the plutocracy to give you. They got to give us the truth, whether it's in a form of entertainment. Okay. If it's in the form of symbolism, or if it's in a movie or whatever, they got to give you, the edification of what's going to be taking place on the planet. So,
and why is that?
Because it's part of the law. I think it's called the threefold law. So they have to give you the truth, but it's up to you to have the mental and spiritual fortitude in order to galvanize that truth and see it for what it is. Whether they put it in the movie, symbolism, you got to be able to decode that information.
Right. Wow, very, very interesting. So what about in terms of why do you think they when they do the whole chemtrail thing, they usually, because they could use a Y, they could use any, but they usually do X's. You always see the X's in the sky. Why do you think they use that letter, and particularly when it comes to chemtrails?
See, the chemtrails is actually a reverse of frequency. It's a form of inversion because they know that the convergence of the tetrahedron energy that's being activated by the sun, which causes a Schumann resonance spike on the planet, which causes a plasma discharge. So the chemtrails in itself is another way to combat the energy of the divine feminine energy, because these chemtrails is actually the glue to the ley line grid system that basically keeps us away from activating these energies that is being activated by the sun. So it's another way to basically block out these energies that's coming in.
Very, very, very interesting.
Because it's not a coincidence that the word X and hex is basically putting encryption over the planet.
Say that again. That was deep.
So it's not a coincidence that X and hex are basically kind of like an anagram. So it's like putting encryption over, different certain geographical locations, because it's a fact that there's different energy grids and systems on this planet. So that's another way to, when you look at, best way I can explain it is when you look at the Aquarian age symbol, the Aquarius symbol, those are the cosmic radiation that the God's pouring down on the planet. Like I said, those chemtrails is basically another way to basically block out that energy, because like I said, the divine feminine energy coming in, that is basically the dematerialization of the grid system that's connected to the corporate system of the matrix.
Why do you think, some people say when they refer to cosmic energy, they refer to it as a sexual energy, just like the Kundalini energy. They say it's a creative, sex is creative, it's creative energy. Why do you think they chose, when it comes to porn, to use the XXX when it comes to porn? Do you think that has something to do with the whole creative aspect, or?
Yeah, most definitely, because it's like I said, it's an inversion. Everything they do, kind of like when you look at the color spectrum of a rainbow, when you see the alphabet groups, when it's a reverse of frequency to throw you off and disconnect you from that energy. So when you look at a triple X is kind of connected to the numerical spectrum of 666. So 666 is also the symbology of the activation of the carbon body. So there is a diametrical difference between the activation of the carbon body and the dematerialization of the Canaanite beast man that was cursed with leprosy, because these are these energies that's coming in, these cosmic radiations that's coming in, is not meant for them to survive that type of energy, because they don't have the genetical faculties to do so. So that's why it tells you in Revelation that the beast has a 6,000 year dominion over the planet, and that time is up already. So that, like I said, everything, the inception of the planet started with a sun cycle. We're in that sun cycle now. So the beast man and his system was galvanized under a lunar cycle, which is under the Taurus cycle and the Piscean age. So, but when you're talking about the 666, it's a fact that the woman's genetical structure has an orgone energy. And it has an orgone energy, meaning that her sexual energy has to be compatible with her spirituality. So women have the ability to manipulate the weather when they're tapped into a certain frequency. So you're able to manipulate the weather due to the fact that you're tapped into your sexual energy. You can basically women can open up portals on this planet when they're in sync with their sexual energy and their spiritual energy. So that's why, 666, well, not 666, but
XXXX.
Triple X is basically another way to sexually gratify or sexually pervert the energy of the woman to make her acclimated to a form of sexual gratification, instead of using that energy to galvanize a certain spiritual frequency on the planet.
We talk a lot about, I hear a lot of y'all talk on the platform about, certain things that the woman can do with their energy when they're tapped in, especially with their sexual energy. Do you think that, this might be a little off topic, but do you think that a virgin's energy is more powerful than a woman who has had sex with multiple partners, and that's why some people considered virgins so important back in antiquity?
Oh yeah, most definitely. Because it's one of those things like your sexual energy is basically the cosmic fuel on how you infiltrate this matrix system. So it's like you need that energy. Your sexual energy is like one of the gateways on how you infiltrate this system. So if you, it's the same thing with a man. If you laying down with multiple women and you basically giving, you know, just you're making your sexual energy accessible to every woman, you're not gonna have the cosmic fuel to basically infiltrate it, because you need that semen retention. You know, is a thing that you need in order to galvanize that evolution.
Yeah, somebody said the Wakanda Forever. Put the X in Wakanda Forever. Even DMX will go like that. DMX will go like this. The Wakanda, wherever you see people intuitively just doing symbols with X. So yeah, you said something early about leprosy, and I hear y'all talk a lot about the sun. Is there a leprosy outbreak because there's a new son in town? There's a new sheriff in town. Is that why we're seeing these cases of leprosy break out?
Yep. When you go to Revelations 17:17, which is a transliteration of the book of El's Holy Injil, that was created by Dr. Malachi Z. York, it tells you verbatim that the evil reptilian gave power to the beast, and the beast only has dominion over this planet for a certain amount of a 24,000 verification period, because when you look at the perception of the equinox, it is broken up into 6,000 year increments. But when you flip it, there's an X over the planet. So like I said, when you understand the inception of creation, it started with a sun cycle, but the inception of creation is connected to their ending. So the sun cycle is going to be a time of point where they're going to basically lose their power. So that, like I said, that's why when you understand the mythology of Yakub, he tells you that I'm going to create a people that's going to rule over you for 6,000 years. That time is up. So the rule is basically under a construct over a corporate system. When you're talking about politics, religion, when you're talking about the food industry, all those things are being galvanized by those who are cursed with leprosy.
Yes, they making all the connections in the chat. Somebody said X 24, Kobe Bryant. I guess X is the 24th letter. 2 + 4 = 6. You said it was the 6, the 666. So yeah,
I'm gonna tell you something about the letter X also, because it's one of those things where it has it contains when you talking about the return of the ancestral energy, when you're talking about the return of the solar eclipse that's going to happen on April 8th, 2024. Remember, it's 2024. 24 is the end of Kobe Bryant's number. It's the same thing. It's a symmetrical difference. So that X over the planet, like I said, these new energies coming in is going to cause a plasma discharge that activates the 4 elements, which is earth, wind, water, fire. So this is why you have an activation all around the planet, like that boy who jumped into those waters and he got electrocuted out of nowhere. You heard about that?
Well, Lake Lanier, what happened? Tell me what happened with that.
Well, I'm just telling you that like the plasma discharge is basically causing ionization all over the planet. It's a form of activation, which is connected to a form of a chronal activation or corona activation, or the crown activation, which is the neuroendocrine transducer. So everything that's connected to carbon, because carbon is the building block of all civilization. So everything that's connected to the energy of nature is being activated. So that's why I said the return of the X solar flares that's amalgamating with the physical world. So that's why they're coming out with a new draconian scandemic when they're talking about the is letter X. They're actually acclimating that to what's going on. So it's not a coincidence that they know that these cosmic energies that's coming in is going to cause a form of pestilence. So that's why I'm saying, like, you got leprosy going on. So that's the reason why you see all these things that's taking place.
Wow, very, very, very interesting. Very interesting. So is there anything, what should we, in terms of 2024, because we hear a lot about 2012, we heard about the year 2000. Where does 2024 fall in level of importance with these other years that we have heard about? Do you think it's like, extremely important for the planet? Like how serious should we take what's going down with this eclipse with the X of 2024?
Oh, you should take it important because like when you break down a numerical spectrum of 2024, it's equated to the infinity symbol, which is the number 8. So it's another way to bring you back into a artificial time analysis mechanism. It's a time loop. So because they know that 2025 is going to be the beginning points of the ascension process, because 9 is basically the symbology of evolution. So when you talk about 2025, so that's another way to galvanize the frequencies of the souls on this planet to where they implement a new matrix, you know what I'm saying, to subjugate humanity. So that's why next year there's going to be a lot of psychological operations that's going to be taking place.
X, when you said when you mentioned the number 8 and the infinity symbol, X actually looks like the infinity symbol, an open infinity symbol. That's exactly. Some deep shit. Yeah, X looks like it's open on both ends.
It's like another way to break out of the 8.
Yeah. So it's like, hold on, let me see. It's like that's an X family, right? But then if we close it, you know what I'm saying? It looked like, you can almost have an infinity. That's
a download right there.
Yeah, that's a download family. So what's your thoughts on the infinity symbol in X then?
Well, from my perspective, I think the infinity symbol, a lot of people said it's a representation of infinite energy, but I think it's connected to the fact that it's bringing you back into a timing loop. It's basically like a another way to where they use cause and effect, like through a Hegelian dialectic principle. They create circumstances on the planet to bring about a certain agenda. It's like they keep bringing about these psychological operations. So the X is also the representation of a form of transformation to where you're not acclimated to the energy of the time loop, because the time loop of the matrix system, when you understand the mechanisms of it, everything is derived on a ley line grid system, right? So that means that when you're born into the matrix, when you're born into sin, it's not a coincidence that our hands is also connected to the ley line grid system. We're born in the matrix system. You're basically encrypted on a certain geographical areas on this planet to where you're not able to reap the benefits of ascension. So now, when you're talking about that X is also the symbology of your so-called great awakening, because they know that these new energies that's coming in has a centripetal or an centrifugal forces that has a tetrahedron energy.
Right. No, I had to wipe the.
Oh, okay.
I'm just, you're talking, and I'm like, things is coming to me like a lot of like, as far as this X, I remember it was either Rod Hayes or wait, let me get rid of this. Or a couple of people said that in the middle of your hand, because you mentioned your hand, most of us have a X. Where's it at? Right, it's right there, family. You see that? Y'all see that, family? So right in the middle of our hand, the majority of us have an X. There's no getting around this X, bro. There's everywhere. And it's in both of my hands, dead center in the middle of my hand. There's an X on each palm. And I remember Rod, I forgot what they said about that, but I just thought about that when you was talking. But BDELL, besides that, and that's y'all making a lot of connections in the chat, but that's interesting. All right, yeah.
Once again, 432 hertz, binaural beats, and John Coltrane. My son was born in jazz. That's another thing you could play at night too, is some jazz.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Let's see. Let's get to another question. What does he think about digital music and synthesized sounds in comparison to natural music from real instruments and the effect it has on the spirit?
Well, I think when you look at, the foundation of jazz music, in my opinion, I think the universe operates on on the frequency of jazz music, and it's also acclimated to your nervous system. So just in itself, like when you have like real instruments, real octave cymatic frequencies, it's able to rejuvenate the body. You know what I'm saying? And it's able to put the brain and your neurological faculties in a balanced state. So that's why, you know, the great majority I listen to, like music, I listen to a lot of jazz music most of the time when I'm chilling out, you know, just reading. I play it lightly in the background, but I don't really get into the whole digital musical instruments and stuff like that. But
right. Yeah. Natural and real music will put you in it.
Like just like the organ, you know what I'm saying? Organs, you know what I'm saying, probably revitalize your organs when you play the organs, you know, because it's not by accident that, you know, they sound the same. So
right. Real instruments will put you in a trance, and synthesized sounds will put you in a spell. That's the difference. You're not going to get put in a trance under digital music. Doesn't happen like that. If you were to examine the music industry and how the killings of the rappers 10x and 100x, it actually happened at the time of the digital music taking over and the synthesized sounds. Once the real music and the real instruments was removed, then we begin to see the spell even take place at a higher level. It didn't have the same effect when they were using real instruments. When Jay-Z does a live show with real instrument, it neutralizes the shit that he was saying, the synthesized beats. When any artist performs with a live band, the frequency that they're able to cast and the spell that they're able to cast and the trance that they're able to put on the listener or in the audience, right, is higher than if you get up there with those with that little Uzi synthesized sound. When you get up there with the digital music or what they call the electronic sound, the electronic music, that's not real. That doesn't have the same effect of a drum. Any of the producers and beat makers out there, they can also tell you. I would love for Rich to answer that question because, you know, I've been in sessions and whatnot where real instruments were played versus what was coming off of the machine, and it sounds completely different. They have completely different frequencies and energies to them. And if you add live music to your song, you have a higher probability for making a hit or a classic. Forget about a hit. Make a classic. Because a classic is a classic and a hit. It can hit 100 years from now. Make a classic and put natural music in your music. And I promise you, you have more of an opportunity to do that than if you have it sounding like a video game.
And plus the digital synthesized music, that's also acclimated to nanogenetic mind control. Alexa, stop.
Super facts.
Yeah, it's also connected to nanogenetic mind control. So it's infrastructure.
That was a bar right there. Yo, the great divine speaks a sign. He said that was genetic mind control. Some shit said doo-doo-doo. He said Alexa. Wow. They're telling me about me and my chat bot. They're telling me about ChatGPT-5, and he just told, yeah, let's go.
Now, let's get to the next question. What can be done to take back our music? Generational wealth is being ripped away from us.
All of the DJs that are out there, stop being lame. And I would say more, but this is a family show. You know, I got some of my hardest criticism for the DJ. They the ones that drop the ball, not the artists. The artists exist. The artists are thriving. The artists are creating. There's a whole ecosphere of artists out here with bars and classics. It's just the DJs chose the lower frequency, and they felt they basically, you know, they bent their knee and whatnot, and they failed at their job. It was the DJs, not the DJ like you on stage with the artist. We ain't talking about that DJ. That DJ don't exist no more. We talking about the mixtape DJ, the playlist DJ, and the club DJ. Y'all was supposed to have conscious music lit right now, because there's artists that got some lit ass music, but it's not going to grow legs and it's not going to be a hit if your ass don't play it in the club.
Facts.
or if you don't play it on the radio, or if you don't play it to college students. Y'all are the ones that became the D writers of the frequency that put you under control and whatnot. And you fell into the quote unquote, you were the first bottle girls and the first lap dancers.
Mm-hmm.
You hoard yourself out for a frequency of music and whatnot that you thought was going to get you lit and whatnot. But how, when none of you stand out, there's a million of the DJs playing the same music, and there's only like 4 or 5 of them that stand out, and all of the ones that's getting real money is melanated right now. But if you broke Cyrock, if you broke Cambada, if you broke the Pillars, if you broke AA, if you had that on your name and your title and whatnot, your value would have gone up, and you would have been a part of history. And you niggas dropped the ball. That's a fact. So when any DJ try to ride through and say something, I'm like, yo, you got to show me with your action. I was listening to you for 10 years, but nobody was listening to me with your goddamn tag on it, with you playing it though. So the DJs could start with that. We are already taking back our music. Stop signing to the labels and build your own. Tap into the AI tools that are available and turn your thing into something new and something exciting. The Apple glasses is coming. So get into VR, virtual reality, augmented reality. You have to take this music from a whole different stance right now. Be in a metaverse with bars. Be in a digital world with bars. I'm telling you that. Stop being so proud and whatnot. But it don't got to be you. It could be your children. And it don't matter what age you are. If you have talent, why would you not do something when everybody else is doing something? Do you know how much songs get uploaded a day? Why would you not? If everybody else is making, if they throwing their hat in the ring, because that's why I say I can't blame nobody for doing what they do. This is not the record industry of 20 years ago, right, Rich? Indeed. How easy was it to get a record out 20 years ago if you was nice and you was like, I want the world to hear me? You couldn't take that. You just couldn't be any independent route. No, you couldn't do it like that. Now you could do that. So we need more goddesses singing about them being goddesses. We need people to take these popular beats and these TikTok beats out here and remix them and put some new, but I'm not going to say positive because that's not what I don't rap positive. I rap a frequency that's in alignment with my DNA and who I told the people I was. I give them a version of the Scorpion King. You know what I'm talking about? But they say that you have 1,000 parts of you. So I give them all parts of myself because I will not box myself in. So there's a whole spectrum of what I represent. And I have multiple sounds, multiple styles and whatnot, multiple flows. You know, I'm just being, it's some of the most therapeutic it's some of the most therapeutic outlets that you could ever think of, where you could just put your creation out there into the world with nobody telling you when you could do it, how you could do it. We need to own you. You need to sign your life away to us. Nah, bro. So people be complaining about some of the wrong things, but more artists need to get on the frequency, tap in, and get to this bag because it's out here. It's out here. Don't limit yourself. Your face card is good everywhere, even in cyberspace. And I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, BDELL, did you want to touch on that question or you want to move on to the...
No, well, in my opinion, I think the best way to take back the music is have the resurgence of the underground music. I kind of see it being done with Griselda a little bit, and play many different branches of hip hop groups that's stemming out of that demographic right there. But that's the only way to do it, is to, revitalize the infrastructure of the underground music industry, and then stop signing to these big corporations and these big record labels. That's the only way you can really do it.
We're saying the same thing. Exactly.
Let me ask y'all, do y'all think quote unquote low frequency fans support the low frequency artists more than high frequency fans support high frequency artists?
Hell
and
yeah.
if so, why are low vibrational, so-called low vibrational people, why do they appear to be so supportive